Today is April 11th, 2018. This is MMA Junkie Radio's pre-show, the show that rolls before the actual show.
Get to the real stuff.
Yeah.
Get to
I'm
the
good.
pressing
That's
matters.
Danny's over there. Danny
Yeah.
does not like the Phantom Menace, Star Wars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are with you on that, Danny. But you're saying like it's hot garbage. It's not hot garbage. It
Okay.
had Darth Maul in it.
Here's what
And
I'll say.
Obi-Wan Apprentice, the best Obi-Wan of them all.
Dan's pushing for
Had
the
great
for the-
lightsaber battles.
Okay, but I said
Qui-Gon Jinn.
just through. They killed him off like
Anakin,
so quick.
Anakin,
He didn't even have a good.
no!
He doesn't even have a good like length of in the movie.
I could do without the Gungans.
I do,
We'll give you that.
and I do wish there was some payoff with Qui-Gon and Anakin's mom. I really wish something happened there.
But what about Watto? Annie.
That guy was creepy with the Gonzo
guy's
nose.
awesome.
Dude, no, he was
Yeah.
a pervert.
Didn't he sound like a used car salesman?
Annie, come here, Annie.
Annie.
Annie, you make Annie,
Escape.
Annie takes.
2003. Come buy from me.
That guy was creepy. He was just like, Annie takes care of things around here for me.
That guy was the best, dude.
I wouldn't trust him. I feel like he really had creepy things intended for Anakin, and I'm really glad they got him away from
Pod
there.
racing?
That's all I'm gonna say.
You didn't like
That's all
pod
I'm-
racing, Danny? How
I think there was more to it than that goes.
Nah.
about that dirty ass pod racer? That guy was just like fucking people up.
was, dude.
Two
How does he not
minutes?
get caught?
2 minutes.
He was probably a menace in school.
Danny, come on. Give it another shot.
Man, where have you
No,
been,
I will not give it another shot. I think
Annie,
that
come here.
if I never watched the movie, or if I knew somebody who never watched the movie, this is what I would tell them to watch. I would say Google lightsaber battle with Darth Maul, and I think it's like 7-8 minutes. 7-8 minutes of the movie. That's all I would tell somebody to watch.
What if there was a commentary
'Cause the
track with
Darth
Watto?
Maul-
Would you watch it then?
Great lightsaber battle to.
Yeah, the best one is with Darth Maul, and so I would take out that 6 to 8 minutes of Darth Maul.
What if Qui-Gon Jinn put the
Tell
moves
them
on
to
Anakin's mom? Would you maybe give it a higher rating?
Coming up in a minute. I did not.
There
find
was a setup
Anakin's
there.
mom
Well, there was a setup.
attractive at all.
I'm not saying I did either. I'm just saying they wrote something there, and it could have,
They cut that
tied in
dude
the romantic
half.
element,
Cut him in half. They took the best character and sliced him in half.
Anakin.
I know they ruined him. Like,
Well,
He's
in the
supposed to be like a-
cartoons and stuff, he comes back as like a spider or some shit, right?
He does?
Like they attach legs onto him.
well, they're still saying that he may actually be alive because in some of the books that are now the new quote unquote canon, coming up in 30, they said that he was able to survive that, so he may actually make an appearance in one of the other movies.
If that happens, then nothing. I mean, didn't the what's the old dude that just got chopped in half? They love chopping people in half. Back.
Yeah.
What's that dude's name?
Well, it's like,
Snoke, right?
Yeah,
Oh my
stand by.
God, we're so nerdy.
I don't know. Is that the dude who looks like a twink, or is that the new Darth Vader?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He looks like a toad.
Yeah.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is gonna be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Gold. This is what we do and why we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yes!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMA Junkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show. This is the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, our ace co-host. To my left, that's the fight analyst, Dan Tom. Back east, handling all the producing duties, Danny Otto. Sup?
Sup?
Morning.
Sup?
Hey, Danny.
Hi.
Yeah, so, kind of embarrassed,
All right.
but I get a chance
too.
to be happy again. And let me explain why.
Okay.
Do you remember when we were at the base last
Yeah.
week? I told you, I go, hey, today's our anniversary.
A week,
these
a
are-
week before that, Buffalo Blue told me, hey, your anniversary's coming up on the 11th. And I just figured, how's he gonna know more than George?
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought we goofed it.
The 2007
I
date,
don't know how I remembered that.
that little 7, actually was what threw me off.
Mm.
And there was so much going
What the-
on where we were either jumping on a bus, getting off a bus, or getting ready to do some sort of an introduction to a new unit or to any group that we were with, that I guess I didn't have time to just look at my phone, go back and go, hey, was the 11th even a Monday, a Tuesday? Turns out, sorry, the 7th. The 7th was a Saturday in 2007. So that right alone would have tipped me off. And yesterday, I just happened to be, it just hit me, man, out of nowhere. It just hit me. And a few listeners were also offering some congratulations. And I go, I'm so dumb. It clicked. It turns out today is our 11-year anniversary. So we soaked up some kudos the other day. Actually announced it at the viewing party, and people were cheering. So here we are, double dipping on the same anniversary. But today's actually our 11-year anniversary. It's been quite a ride. Thanks to everyone that listens. Without you, for sure, none of this is possible. And, of course, everyone along the way, and the list is really long, but anyone along the way that assisted us, in our journey. Like Frank Trigg just giving us the opportunity to saddle up next to him and continue what him and Ryan Bennett started years ago.
Great photo, by the way.
I can't thank him enough. And our first venture to Sirius, which did not go well, I jump on and I'm in a MSN chat. Remember MSN chat? Remember AOL and AIM or whatever?
Yeah.
I'm on an MSN chat, and I had a late-night conversation with Dan Stubb. You've all heard the story. I won't get into it. Dan Stubb from MMA Junkie. We only had a relationship in that he had a hyperlink banner, I think that's what it's called, of Tag Radio on his site, and that was it. We had also had an informal, we do interviews, they recap, link back to us, and that's it. I catch him there. He happens to say, how you doing? I say it back to him, and I just said, man, by the way, I think we're going to have to take down that banner pretty soon, and that sparks a conversation, and he saves the day. He makes us Junkie Radio and keeps the lights on. So, USA Today buys MMA Junkie years later. The support we've gotten from them is tremendous. Mandalay Bay, our home for many years. Sirius XM, where we're now, in our third year. So again, that along with just, seriously, the list could go on and on of people that have assisted, provided some form of an assistance. Now you're part of the team, Dan Tom.
Humbly, thank you.
So we can either do a 2-hour show of just thanking people, or you can just please accept from the bottom of our hearts, many thanks to you all for being there for us and listening and sharing and telling your friends and stopping by and supporting us, junkie gatherings. Dude, we used to get these contributions via the Tag Radio PayPal. There was so many things that really, really helped out tremendously. It's, I don't know, man. I actually, when I was writing out the preview for today, I had tears of joy. Nothing made it down my cheek, but my eyes were watery, as I was typing all that. Because coincidentally, Cub Swanson's a guest of ours today, and he was there on week 1. He wasn't there on day number 1. I think Joker Guyman was day number 2. I think Cub may have been day number 3, and Tiki Ghostin was day number 4. So we were in Studio Beast even back then when we were podcasting in Santa Ana, California, from the kitchen of the home we grew up in. But I remember Cub, for sure, week 1 was there. He was a WEC standout, trying to chase down Uriah Faber, and I was typing that out, sending that to the editorial, and just telling them, man, I think we goofed, man. I think we posted something the other day, and it's not then. It's actually today. But regardless, Cub Swanson will be a guest of ours today. He's got a fight coming up with Frankie Edgar at UFC Fight Night 128 on April 21st. And also, and that's headlined by Kevin Lee, and it's in Barbosa, so I believe they're the co-main event. And also, we'll talk to good old JR.
Yeah.
WWE Hall of Famer Jim Ross. He'll be on the show today. He is probably the person that one of the people we're very comfortable with talking with, about pro wrestling. I mean, this guy's a legend, and over the years we've gotten to talk to him about so many things, but we've actually known him on the boxing front when he used to come in and broadcast boxing, and we've talked a lot of MMA with him when he's been here to co-host with us, so it's just fun to catch up with good old JR. College football, you name it, he'll talk. But I figured he would be a good person to assess Ronda Rousey's debut week. She debuted at WrestleMania as a performer. She debuted weeks before that just as as a wrestler on Sunday, as a performer a few weeks ago when all she did was come out and point. But now she's already having a little bit more of a role there coming out. I saw her on Raw, and so I wanted to talk to him about that. Shayna Baszler captured the NXT women's title, and that's where Mauro Ranallo, that's where he announces. So I don't know too much about that, but I know JR does. And then last night I caught Andre the Giant. You guys see that special on HBO?
Yeah, that was really, really cool. Really good.
Yeah, I loved it, guys. About an hour in, Juliet goes, I'm tapping out because she was tired. And like a big dummy, I said, all right, we'll catch the other half tomorrow. So I only watched the half, so I'll have to rely on you. But it was awesome.
Well,
and I thought about it this morning. I go, why didn't I just finish it and just rewatch it with her? I've done that many times. And that way, that'd be yet another thing to talk to Jim Ross about. But,
do that.
Yeah, you can do it. And I saw an hour's worth. Did you catch any of it?
No, so I'm even less than
Brilliant,
you, man. Yeah.
Brilliant. Catch it on HBO. You'll love it. The way those people spoke about Andrei Rusinov, which is his real name, I didn't know. At the time, I thought he was more of a sideshow. But little did I know just how much respect his presence commanded in the locker room, within all these organizations, the way they were able to market him and promote him. He couldn't come out every night. All right? So what happened is he would jump around from all the different leagues, and it was kind of like when you wake up and if you subscribe to Ticketmaster or StubHub or anything else, and they let you know your favorite band's coming to town and would you like a ticket. That's how it was with him. And, in April he might be somewhere in Indianapolis, and in July he might be in North Carolina, and so at some point, Andre was coming to your town, and you wanted to see it, and he'd come out there and just do what he does, which is never lose until Hulk Hogan got him, right? Is that the way it worked out?
I believe, early on in his career, he lost a few times, but but he had like a streak, right? Of like 13 years or something like that.
Something like that.
I thought when you were talking about like the tear in your eye, that was one thing. I don't know if you got to that point when Hulk Hogan, when they had like their contract signing or whatever, and he ripped Hulk's shirt. He had Vicks Vapor Rub on his fingers, and he tried to stick it in his eyes so they
no.
But Andre shook him so much he wasn't even able to do it.
Yeah, no, it was just tears of joy of thinking back to how possible it was that Tag Radio could not have continued to be where we were now. I mean, what else would we be doing?
We've done some crazy things.
You got your degree. I'm sure you might be working in the psychology field or doing something else. And I worked in corporate America, and maybe I'd be doing something else. Who knows? But all I know is I've had an incredible 11 years. Hell, if you just go back to last week at JBLE, that would not have been possible. So that was pretty cool that we powered through some rough times and some rough seas, and
rough
hopefully
times
there's more smooth sailing
in people's lives. Like everybody has them, But I think you remember more of the good times, like everything that comes out of the bad times.
I told my buddy, you were tagged into that text. He felt like maybe it's too late for him to try something new, or what I told him, I go, look, I'm not going to go Tony Robbins on you, but I don't ever feel like it's too late. If you have a passion about something, go out there and try it while you still have your job. If you're not the ultimate risk taker where you just walk out and say, that's it, I quit, and move on to something else. I get that. But you can still try something in addition to, and if it takes off, well, then guess what? can tell your boss to shove it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then you can just keep on collecting that paycheck, whatever. But it's never too late to try something new. It seems like in this day and age, it's so possible. You know?
100%, man. I mean, I know I'm not, in my 40s or anything, but, when I hit 30, I was in a bad spot, moving back in at home, losing a job. My health just went to crap with a concussion. I could barely drive once a day. Just got out, girl just left me, lost a job. All these things happening at a rock bottom. But that's when I started my journey, and now I'm still in the quote-unquote honeymoon/hurricane, kind of season. I say honeymoon because it's great, but I also say hurricane because it's crazy. Dan Stuff, editor-in-chief, as we know, what 4 years he went without a day off. So I'm still just plowing through, using guys like yourself as my inspiration, so I can kind of look back and reminisce like you guys are doing now. But as what we're talking about, I will say, at least I hope I can say it as a listener, at least I'll take this position as just congratulations, to you guys. I know you guys, it's hard to really congratulate yourself, but as someone on the panel who is in a unique position where I've followed you guys and been a listener way longer than I've been lucky enough to sit on this panel here. Honestly, guys, it's really inspiring. So that message you're trying to produce, that it's not too late. I think you guys, have done that and produced that positive message throughout your 11 years now, which is insane to say.
Thank you, sir.
So.
Appreciate that. The guests will come pouring in. Let's see here. That little pause is because my computer
The following?
reset. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we have some time right now to take the calls. Jim Ross will join us at 10:40 a.m. Pacific, 1:40 p.m. Eastern time. I know some of you may catch our show on Sirius like I do usually on my way home. And so we're a show that's replayed on Sirius, so if these times don't match, oftentimes you'll hear me just say in 30 minutes or in the first hour, in the second hour, because I remember from time to time that I'm basically dangling a carrot. Hey, call in, Oh, by the way, we're off 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
And some of you also listen to us on your way to work the following day because we're replayed there. And many of you listen on the app, but that's kind of the way it works. But anyway, for those that are listening live, Jim Ross will join us in about 20 minutes. And so now's a good time to call in, 866-522-2846. I went back and looked at some of the comments on Facebook, and it looked like a lot of people just got inspired by being first-time callers or saying, all right, you yelled at us a little bit, and so we called in. So very cool to see that on Facebook. Hopefully some of you on YouTube, you're just sitting there, man, fucking twiddling your thumbs. And I know shit's on your mind because you fucking come in with the venomous comments on YouTube and the forums. Why type all that out when all you have to do is call 866-522-2846 and go, this is what's on my mind. This is who I think should fight next. This is what I think the UFC should do. Say it.
And you guys aren't just saying it, by the way. I listen to the show forever. You guys all say, we love when new callers call in. Like, it's not just a coax. Like, from this seat now, I actually really enjoy when the new callers come in, especially when they surprise you and they come strong. Yeah. Those are some of the best calls, those first-time callers, and they just come strong. But, Gus is laughing over there.
Why are you laughing?
Why are you laughing,
No,
Gus?
I'm just laughing.
Why are you laughing,
I
Gus?
always have a smile on my face.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But, yeah, in the last 7 days, we had some pretty cool callers. Yesterday, we had one.
Hi. Got some people out there chilling. All right, so Jim Ross will be followed by Cub Swanson in the second hour. So, again, plenty of pockets in between, before, afterwards, for you all to call in, and so we can talk about anything that's on your mind. I think UFC 223 talk is starting to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I think basically all the storylines have been put out, and any repercussions or any happy notes that accompany all these narratives that took place last week, they're being addressed. When we find out that there's some sort of a fine or a suspension or legal ramifications for old Connie Mack, of course, we'll pass it on to you. MMAJunkie.com, putting out the stories every 30 minutes, something fresh. You get it through Facebook. You get it straight by going to our website. You get it from Twitter. So subscribe and follow and do all that, because that is the meat potatoes of the MMA Junkie family is the website. We're kind of like a side salad, but a tasty one. Cranberries and apple, and I like that one. You like that apple, that salad?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. It's got the candied walnuts.
That's
the salad.
Cranberries and candied walnuts, underrated, right?
Yeah, that's
underrated.
a great salad.
Underrated.
That's a great salad.
Underrated.
Those be our two guests for today. And if you have a favorite moment in Tag Radio, MMA Junkie Radio. I have no problem, kind of going down a little bit of memory lane. Don't ask that. Don't ask that to us, because I don't think we can pin it down to one.
Favorite moment?
And if we go down the road of favorite, top 5, top 10, then this will be just a nostalgic show.
I can do that.
Which maybe we can do. You have a favorite moment?
Hell yeah.
What's your favorite moment?
Well, it goes back to last night. Just watching the
Goes
Andre the
back.
Giant documentary and seeing Roddy Piper, a guy that I grew up watching as a kid and hanging out with him, having him here in studio, turning into Roddy Piper. Can't top that, man.
Dude, that's got to be in your top 1 or 2, even.
That's a top moment.
The number 1.
Yeah,
wow, yeah. I can see that. Yeah, 100%.
You know what was so cool? And I don't know that I can just name it my top moment, because maybe I'd have to really, really think about it. The 2000 show was very special. But Samoa Joe was there for that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I saw Samoa Joe at Raw. And it was so cool to just see the many people that flowed through our studio that day, and Samoa Joe was one of them. And then seeing him now as he continues to rise, and he's been a world champion, in that field. But I knew very little about the guy, and he's playing out to be a pretty interesting character on Raw. Excuse me. Rhonda, same thing. We've had Shayna on the show, never in person, but we've had her on via the phone. Now she's having some success, so good on them.
There's something to that, though. I'm a big nostalgia guy, though, so I get that. There's the moments that come personal to you, and then that's what's going to kind of rank with you, right? There's a thing, especially before. These are things you held high before the show, like Samoa Joe or Roddy Piper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though my time is short, I'm still blown away. I can tell you mine right now, even though it's criminal.
Can I guess?
Yes, go ahead.
Big John McCarthy?
Yeah. How'd you know?
I know you.
Yeah, you know me. Well, just because that's the guy that you've been seeing ref, and like that, he commands so much respect and all this stuff, and just it wasn't just Big John. It was just the moment where. It might be even within the first show, because Big John's just so sharp. But by the time the second or third time he was on, just calling me by my name, I'm like, why does this guy know my name? And it just doesn't make sense. We all have that first moment where you're like, why does this guy know my name? And that was mine. Mine belongs to Big John. And I think I need to reference Adam Carolla again on the show, but he said something similar. Like, I think it was like some singer from a band, it was Axl Rose or something. Goes, oh, something Adam Carolla, and he went, why does Axl Rose know my name? Because Guns N' Roses was big through the 80s, and this is in the 90s now. And he's like, why does this guy know my name? Because you reach that certain point where, it's that weird crossing of the bridge. I'm sure names are probably crossing in your guys' head right now just by doing this show, where you're like, why do you know my name? But now you look back, they're a regular guest, maybe even a friend of yours.
I know number 2.
Go ahead.
What is it?
It's when we had Vanderlei Silva and Randy Couture on the same show co-hosting. I remember thinking it was them at the height, but one was in Pride and one was in the UFC. And I remember thinking, I wonder if this would be the equivalent of, if you're a boxing fan and I had a boxing show, do I have Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier here right now at the same time? Like, is that what the equivalent of this is?
As a listener, it felt that way. I can tell you that, just being a listener at that time.
That was a stressful day because one of them had to wait. I know that for a moment. I know that off the top of my head, working out the mics. I think at one point we did get them on together, but just to know that we had to make one of them wait.
We had to bounce trick.
Huh?
We had to bounce
Is that
trick.
the way it worked out? The Roddy Piper moment was pretty cool. The chasing down Vanderlei the first time when we had him in our studio, I think it was Brad from Buffalo or Brad from Charleston called in and said, hey, man, where do I get this shirt? He took it off, signed it, and mailed it to him, making that moment happen for a fan. So anything revolving around Vanderlei was cool. The trip to Afghanistan was cool.
I think the most I've ever been in awe was when Roy Jones was here, or Fernando Vargas. I was just like, wow.
Shoot, you talk about fan moments. That's another quality one. Russ from Boston and DC and all the connections that have happened from like superstars to even fans. Even that's a whole nother list.
He made the papers out there, and that was a nice ride for him. But how about just JR?
JR was cool too.
You know what I mean? Because maybe even before boxing, for sure before MMA, that's a guy that we saw do his thing.
Yeah.
Rob Van Dam.
Crockett Russ, excuse me?
Rob Van Dam.
Rob Van Dam, man, he was cool. I got to spend a day with him out on that set for that CSI. Really, really a chill guy. Met him through Justin McCauley.
BJ Penn in studio was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm. GSP was here for an hour and a half. Dana White was here for 2 hours. All of them had a special feeling to them. You know what it was, guys? It's almost like when you date a girl, from the time when you go, she's hot, to the time you have the nerve to either ask her out or she accepts or you go out and have a good time or whatever. Sometimes it was just like, dude, chasing these guys down. Like pinning Vanderlei was difficult, and getting Dana White was pretty difficult. Same thing with GSP.
Remember the glow sticks and all that with Vanderlei?
Or the hustle you guys had in the, from my point of view, the prime time of all prime times, I want to say, when it was like a turnover of champions. You had a bunch of Ed Suarez's guys. It was a crazy fight week. You had Goes running to the airport. You had Junior Dos Santos, right, or something like that. Or
I remember that.
Was that insane?
In that car ride, so Brad from Buffalo was there too. Sorry to put my finger in your face. It was Nogueira, Eric Silva, Jose Aldo.
Jeez, superstar
Was it Eddie
lineup.
Morale? There might have been 2 more guys in that car. Oh, Junior Dos Santos. He was rapping in the car. All in that one car. It was Dad's Jeep. And I had to drive him. I had Brad from Buffalo in the trunk.
I didn't know that.
And that was like some of JDS's first English.
I had to pick him up.
Yeah, I just know they were all there because I worked on that one through Derek.
Oh, yeah,
the
the
best
translator
in MMA.
Yeah.
Does he still do it? I haven't seen him as much.
Junior Dos Santos was practicing his English because he was nervous about coming on the show.
Yeah, he liked to rap.
But, like, his go-to lines, I remember one of them, he would just say, we're standing here with Junior Dos Santos, and then he would just say, just one more time, baby. It was like nothing ever made sense. But it was perfect, like whatever he said.
He always said
was
yes,
English,
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aldo. I remember it was around the time of the World Cup, and I was asking them both, would you rather go to the final with Brazil, or would you rather go to each other's title fight? And they're both Brazilian, but they didn't know each other as well as people thought. But they both said the political thing and said, I'd rather be at Junior's fight. But I have a feeling Jose loves him some soccer. He'd rather be at that World Cup final. I mean, it's not like you see them palling around much now, right?
No.
One guy lives in Florida most of the time. At American Top Team he trains, Junior. Jose's always been down in Rio. But regardless, it was fun. I found a Habib picture the other day of when he was in our studio.
Wow.
Yeah. He had more of a buzz cut that day. He's never really changed much. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah,
He's always been pretty approachable. You know, one time, dude, and this was Ali's fault. I said we'd love to have Habib on. I think he was still rehabbing his knee, and we agreed on a date. And I'm walking out of the studio towards the sports book or something. I see Habib walking up. I go, "Hey, Habib, what are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm here to do the show." And I go, "Oh, we had you for tomorrow." And he goes, "Okay, no problem. I come tomorrow." And he did it at about face, turned around and started to walk back. And I go, wait a minute. Can you do it tomorrow? Because if you're already here, and bro, it would have fucked up the show because we had a stacked show. But how do you not make 15 minutes for Habib and then just get him on it? No. He goes, "No problem." He goes, "Probably Ali's fault," I think he said. And I go, it kind of is. I told him I didn't know Ali as well. But in reality, it was. I'm sure, you know. Ali understood. I'm sure all he had to do was look at a text and go, "Oh yeah, you're right." But he actually got sent home, but he did show up the next day and he did the show, and really cool, really cool guy, Habib. And of course, everything made easier by the fact that he learned English. How about Alex Emelianenko and Fedor Emelianenko and
Matt
Little Nogueira, all those guys we had in
Little Nogueira
in that hotel room when we were broadcasting from a hotel.
Andre Arlovsky was there too.
Affliction. That was crazy, man. That was a crazy night.
That was fun.
Those are some really stacked shows. All right. 866-522-2846 is the number to call in. Let's take this big break right now, get out of the way, and then when we come back, we'll do a run of calls before we get to Jim Ross, WWE Hall of Fame broadcaster. We'll catch up with him in about 15, 20 minutes or so. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93. Stay close. We'll be right back.
They pat down TSA agents because they don't know where those people have been. And because they can. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Hey, Danny Otto. Did you send me any reads today?
I did not because they were the exact same ones. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll cut and paste them.
Yeah. So, folks, let me say this. This is my chance to just plug one of my favorite channels. First Wave, Channel 33. They play 80s music 24/7. Richard Blade, Doug the Slug, Monstrosity, I think he calls himself. A lot of the names you're familiar with if you ever have followed that genre. And on Saturday nights, catch DJ Bueller. He's a beast, man. 5 p.m. Pacific till 1 a.m. Pacific. Straight. He doesn't say a word, man. But he's got some of the best 80s music remixes I've ever heard in my life. He's probably the best 80s music DJ I've ever heard in my life. And he's the type of guy where, because he doesn't speak, if you're having a party and you're like an older generation or your theme is 80s, just fucking hit play or start his show, boost the speakers, and have a good time. It's almost like you're at the club. Anyway, let's do these quick calls. We got Marco in Waco, Texas. What's up, Marco? How you doing?
Marco from Waco, Road. ¿Qué pasa, dudes?
Not much. How about you?
Happy birthday, Junkie Nation. 11 years. And,
Thank you.
I'm glad to say that I've been part of it for 5.5, so it's pretty cool, man. Like, the best memory I got is meeting you guys on the Junkie Gathering in 2014 when we got that Dana White scrum, man, with the Junkie guys. That was pretty freaking cool, man.
Oh, over at the MGM after the weigh-ins?
After the weigh-ins, yeah, that was freaking awesome.
Yeah, see, that's an example of what I've been saying in the past. When there's a show in town,
crazy.
You just kind of have certain opportunities that you wouldn't if there aren't fights in town. But I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Yeah, we got like the big group picture with Dana White. That was so cool.
Yeah, we had some good questions for him, and I remember one time saying, "Well, yeah, good point. I haven't thought of it that way." And that's because hardcore fans were, I wouldn't say grilling him, but they weren't just going to let him get off with the answers that he gives to Colin Cowherd or any of the people that he does on ESPN, where they just go, "Tell us about that big fight happening this week," and then he says what he has to say as a promoter, and that's it. Junkie Nation came strong. I remember John was there, I was there, so we had some good follow-ups that made him think, and I think it was a really, really cool, productive little session there for him.
You guys gave me a hard time because I asked for a bonus. What the hell, man? I could have walked out with 50.
You asked for a bonus. Joaquin wanted him to go to his wedding, and someone else wanted to, I don't know, lap dances from the ring car girls. Like, whatever. It was a good time, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick for this weekend, man. I'm glad that they're featuring Israel Adesanya on the countdown for the Fox car. They're putting a rocket ship on this kid, man, and we're going to keep an eye because exciting guy to watch fighting, and he got personality, man. Give me a quick assessment of this guy, man. Peace out. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
See you, Marco.
Well, I think his confidence level is a lot bigger than most people that do that crossover. He hits hard, he's fast, and he's got that personality that makes you remember who he is.
Until somebody is able to exploit any of his weaknesses, I think he's got really huge potential, and I think he has an honest assessment of the fact that it is mixed martial arts, and he'll have to tighten all facets of his game. But he is all in on himself, and I don't think he minds the pressure. Too many athletes can't handle it, so they like to take it easy and let the chips fall where they may and let the UFC handle their career. And then there's other athletes that are like, give me the best, let's do it. I'm going to be a world champion. And guess what? Those are the ones that cash big checks. What do you think? You've probably broken down some of his film.
I agree as far as the last point, though. Whose film are we talking about, though?
Izzy Adesanya.
Adesanya. Sorry.
I think it's what I want to see is like some of these guys, they get stuck in international play
Yeah.
And I want to see when they make him do that crossover in the United States.
I know. So I was
This
coming in.
happened to you?
No, I was
This
coming in.
happened
On,
to us
yeah,
so
no,
many
no, yeah,
times.
no. I know what you mean. I was coming in on the last point because I was like, yeah, I like guys like that, and I was about to ask who you talking about, and then it was thrown to me. I'm like, oh crap. Okay.
Izzy Adesanya.
I had to come clean. I had to come clean. Yeah, no, 100%. That is the interesting part because I'm actually breaking this fight down right now, and okay, I don't want to tip my hand because the picks aren't out yet. I'm picking Izzy to win. But the thing is, I want to tell everybody just to temper kind of the talks as far as this goes because it is a smart matchmaking in the sense of they're not throwing him out there against the big name, right? They're not throwing him. I'm trying to think of a.
Vittori's not a threat.
We've seen guys that have been sped up to it too fast, right?
Right.
And we appreciate that, like you were saying. We appreciate guys who want to step up. Those are the guys who are taking those big money fights. I agree with all those points, but I guess what I'm saying is. You run into the the Thiago Alves versus Rick Story or these kind of matchups where you have a durable southpaw like Marvin Vittori and a guy who's not going to go away, a real athletic guy, and really test you and puts you in those places that we haven't seen at the high level.
You wouldn't want to put him against Ed Ruth. I know he's in Bellator.
No, but this.
Where all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's a destruction thing. Hang on a second, we got to jump into this one. We got to get to a commercial soon. Northern Lights, what's up, bud? You rarely call. What's up?
I first want to tell Danny, just get the shot. The rash will clear up. You'll be back to having sex in a couple weeks. Nothing. It'll be easy as shit. I've done it before. You'll heal up. Don't worry. But you guys, it's great to hear from you.
Somebody get Pete on the phone and tell him he's got to do the same thing, right?
What's that?
Somebody needs to get Pete on the phone and tell him he's got to take the same stuff.
I think so, yeah. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, guys. Good to hear from you guys. I'll keep this quick because we've got a commercial coming up. But number one, of course, congratulations on 11 years. It's an unbelievable feat. You guys, you truly are the best in the business. I have been a long-time junkie, and I don't have any intention of ever being a recovering junkie. But real quick, the few things that have stood out to me over the past several years, the first gathering was definitely one of my favorite moments. Just being scared shitless and coming into just a room full of love and running into people that I've become, lifelong friends with, and goes. And then, there's the,
oh my gosh.
more recently, I really appreciate you guys, opening up the studio to other people like Dan Tom. I think he's been a fantastic addition. He really does kind of balance out, since George doesn't watch like good movies. It's good to hear somebody who actually watches that shit and can fucking comment on it. Because it's funny to have someone you can relate to instead of someone who refuses to watch fucking Star Wars and shit like that. But whatever. Definitely love the way that the show's been going. I look forward to many years, and I really I can't thank you guys enough. You guys have filled my my mornings for. I've been listening for almost 10 years now, so nearly a decade of my mornings have been filled with laughter and hilarity. And then, of course, I guess one of my other favorites I have to really quick get in there was finding out that Stitch was writing a book, and then to be able to see and hear and read through the stories of what Stitch lived through, and as the UFC and MMA kind of took off. That was something that was the first real MMA book I ever read and got me into reading a lot of the biographies and autobiographies that have come out from the fighters and other personalities in the industry.
From the fields to the garden,
man.
Part 2 is out, but check out part 1. It really is a great read. So thank you very much for the kind words, Mike. Really appreciate it, and you definitely are one of my all-time favorites, man. So thanks for calling in, bud. Thanks for the roast as well.
Always happy.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were wrapping up. We got to take this quick break, though. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93. Stay close. We'll be right back with WWE Hall of Famer Jim Ross. Sorry about that, Mike, cutting you off. I thought you had bounced out already, but that was a great call, man. Thank you, sir.
Lights.
They are the stretch marks on the underbelly of the MMA community. But hey, stretch marks are the new tats. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
Fantasy baseball season is in full swing, and SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio can take your team to a championship. Hear expert advice from the best fantasy baseball analysts, plus interviews with big league players and general managers. If you play fantasy baseball, you need to listen to SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Series 210 XM87, and on the SiriusXM app by searching Fantasy Sports. I'm so used to saying fighters.
Yeah.
They are players over in baseball. From time to time, they'll have themselves a brawl, but I don't know that I see those as often as I used to.
They get broken up pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. It's like gang fights, though, right? When they all come out and they're swinging, they go at it pretty good.
Football. They're wearing armor.
I know. All right, so our next guest, he has many accolades, but for one, you're listening to a national radio show here that is also a podcast. A lot of our listeners listen that way, and Jim Ross has one of the best ones out there, man. Check it out on Westwood One, the Jim Ross Report. Their shows usually drop on Wednesdays, and one just dropped today. He's also a WWE, NWA, and National Wrestling Hall of Famer. He's also commented in boxing, and as of late, well, I say that, but it's already been a couple years, he is calling the play-by-play at NJPW, which is New Japan Pro Wrestling, him along with Josh Barnett. They called the wrestling matches on Access TV, and this Friday night they will be calling Kazuchika Okada versus Will Ospreay. So check it out. A lot of those athletes have also migrated over to WWE, so there are some quality wrestling matches there as well. Let's bring in good old JR. Hello, Mr. Ross. How you doing?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Good. Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio. You're on with George and Goes. We also have our fight analyst, Dan Tom, here, and we're excited to have you back. We couldn't think of a better person to possibly break down one of the young ladies that left our sport and migrated to the sport where you are an icon. And, of course, I'm talking about Ronda Rousey, who signed with the WWE earlier this spring. And as a performer, she had what seems to be one of the most amazing debuts ever for any WWE superstar. Did you see it that way as well?
Exactly. My new podcast that you mentioned earlier, which I appreciate and thank you, dropped this morning. And in that podcast, I mentioned that I thought that Ronda's debut was the most impactful pro wrestling debut that I have seen in my 40-plus year career.
Wow!
If you look at her skill set, experience-wise, from this genre in pro wrestling, it was almost non-existent. But she had so much pressure on her. The height was amazing. The expectations were mixed. Some diehard wrestling fans don't even like her being there, which is absolutely insane. They are Petcoon goofy, no doubt about that. So I was absolutely blown away by what she did and how she executed. She looked like an athlete. We knew she is an athlete. She's a winner. And now look, so much, well, she lost her last two fights. Kiss my ass. How's that? Come on. She won a lot of fights, guys. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
She's a winner. And she goes to the Olympics and medals. She's a winner. So I knew that she was not going to drop the ball. And I was just extremely proud of her and everybody in that mixed tag match. Those damn things are hard to navigate and to strategize for, especially when you got a lot of inexperience in there. And you look at, Kurt Angle's been hurt. He's not a young spring chicken anymore. He's still amazing. Stephanie's not a fully trained, experienced, long-term wrestler.
Right.
Triple H is a guy that was, got the most street cred in that match as far as pro wrestling's concerned in today's world. I just thought she did outstanding, and it's going to be really fun. If she continues to train as diligently and as ferociously as she has been, the sky's the limit for her. She can be really, really good.
Well, it doesn't get much more powerful than that. 40-plus year career to say that that's the greatest debut ever. That's something else.
Well, think about it. Here's the deal. Think about it, though. It's WrestleMania, guys.
Yeah.
Now, if you're an MMA fan, which your audience is and should be, as am I, then you say, well, what does it matter? Still pro wrestling. Well, there's almost 80,000 people there. It generated over $100 million for New Orleans in that last week. It created opportunities for everybody in the pro wrestling world to come down to New Orleans and set up shop and make a payday. So she has so much pressure at this massive event. It would have been very easy for her to spit the bit and not have a great outing. That did not happen.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've always wondered, JR, and this doesn't just apply to Ronda, but in a stage like that, what is the most difficult? Is it the athletic performance, or is it grabbing the mic and connecting with fans, whether they love you or hate you?
Well, the mystery and the conundrum for any wrestler, and it's not totally foreign to MMA guys. If you can't verbalize, if you can't communicate to the paying customer and your fan base, you're screwed. You know, that's one of the reasons that Conor McGregor got on everybody's map early on, because he's a great soundbite. And so is the Diaz brother, great soundbites. I love those guys. Mm-hmm. So the point is that if you can't communicate and you're trying to sell tickets, you're up a creek without a paddle. So it's extremely important to learn how to communicate, but that doesn't mean you have to sound like every other pro wrestler in the business. Sound real, genuine, and be yourself. And I think Ronda can pull that off quite easily. And physically, hell, there's nothing she can't do physically in a wrestling ring.
Yeah, this is true. All right, goes. What do you have for Jim Ross?
JR, when it comes to WrestleMania, I mean, that's the biggest stage that you could possibly think of in pro wrestling, and Ronda got thrusted right into that and handled it with virtually no problems. But from a storyline standpoint, matchmaking, all that, how far in advance can you plan something like that with someone like Ronda Rousey that's just coming in?
Well, once they got her under contract, you go straight away to where you want her to debut. There's a game plan that is from the recruiting phase to let's get this person assigned phase to get her some training phase, and then where are we going to debut her at? There's nowhere else you'd want to debut if you're a talent than WrestleMania. As a matter of fact, using myself as an example, I debuted at WrestleMania 9 for WWE. It's a big deal for me. It took me 19 years to get there. But Ronda came in and killed it, and I'm sure they had that plan all along that, you know, we know who she's going to work with, we know where she's going to debut, and let's build to that. So it's not that difficult. You get all your pieces in place.
Changing topics just for a second. Last night we all got to see the Andre the Giant documentary, and we thought it was fantastic. We saw you in it for a little bit as well. Can you give your thoughts on the documentary on Andre, and also, if you could, can you think of somebody else that you think would be worthy of maybe a good documentary style like that?
Oh, man. Yeah, there's a lot of talents that have been influential in a variety of things. I watched the Andre documentary. I knew him. I traveled with him in the Mid-South Territory back in the day when Cowboy Bill Watts had his own plane, and with Andre on it and Cowboy flying it, and then me and the beer in the back, it was about all the plane was going to handle. So I got to know him pretty well. I was a gopher. You know, I got his beer and his wine, and he loved Popeye's chicken by the big box. So he was just a sweetheart of a guy. But he wanted normalcy to some degree, and he never found it. And so I think that led to a lot of his unhappiness. Plus, the son of a gun was in pain all the time. I thought the best part of the show, I loved all the content that was gathered in France with his family. I loved that. That was new info. I thought Mean Gene was very honest and outspoken and real. I loved his part of it. You know, Lawler always delivers. Lawler has a victory over Andre that caused a lot of discussion within the wrestling world because Andre didn't lose. He lost by disqualification, so it's not like it's the end of the world. But I thought everybody did a nice job. I would like to have had more new information. I thought Vince McMahon was tremendous. He was so open and so honest. It was almost uncomfortable for me to watch, to be honest with you. So they did a good job. As to your second question, I would say, just off the top of my head, there's a lot of guys. But one guy that had such an influence in college football, in the AFL, in wrestling, in segregation, integration of sports, was Ernie Ladd. And the big cat, Ernie Ladd, You know, the guy. I was 6'9". I wear a size 17 boot. My feet covers the ground I walk on. That he was a philosopher, but he had such an amazing background. I think that non-wrestling fans would truly enjoy a historical look at this giant African American athlete.
JR, let me ask you one quick question about a wrestler that my father always brought up, but I never knew who the heck he was. A guy named Bobo Brazil. Who was he, and like what made him so great for a guy that's now 74 years old? And my father, was he kind of like the it guy or one of the it guys around the time I guess he would have been a teenager, a young man?
He was the preeminent African American pro wrestler for a good while.
Okay.
Because he had a great spot in the biggest territory in the business, and that was the WWF. He was, he had champions. He didn't have the championship, but he was a champion. Big guy, a sweetheart of a guy, probably 6'4", 6'5", 260, 280, somewhere in that neighborhood. When guys, that was big. They're still big, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But Bobo was carried the banner. Bobo broke down a lot of barriers that African American athletes in the genre of wrestling are enjoying today. So Bobo was a real pioneer and I don't know if he's a great wrestler. I don't know if he's a great wrestler, but he was a great attraction. That's what Andre was. Andre was not a great wrestler.
Right.
Andre was a unbelievable attraction.
Yeah, that was kind of cool to see in that documentary how you had to navigate his career. He wasn't the type of guy that could just do house show day after day. You kind of had to build up for it, and that Vince McMahon Sr. was smart enough to allow him out of contract or to be able to go to all the different smaller shows, the territorial shows, and I think that was the best way to handle something like that. But the way, small cities in the Midwest would pack the house, 5,000, 9,000, just because Andre was in town, that was incredible to see and learn about him.
It made all of us more money that were working in those territories in that era because Andre sold tickets. Mm-hmm. And he would come into the Mid-South about twice a year for a week. And we always looked forward to it because, A, the business was up, business picked up, and he was great to be around. Watts offered him that travel deal in a plane or a van, but Andre was always protected in our territory as far as having to spend inordinate amounts of time with the public, because he got very uncomfortable in that regard sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, Vince Sr. did a hell of a job of managing Andre's career. And Andre, like we said, is an attraction. We all agreed on that. But for that matter, so is Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar's not every Monday night wrestler.
True.
Or every Tuesday, whatever the hell.
That's
no,
true.
hell no. He's an attraction.
Yeah.
And the less you see him, the more special he stays.
So,
and I don't have the issue of Lesnar being a part-timer as everybody else seems to have.
So, JR, our producer was telling us that you're okay if we go to commercial and come right back with you. We got just a couple more questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. You bet, guys. Happy to talk to you.
Awesome. All right, folks, this is Jim Ross, WWE, NWA, National Wrestling Hall of Famer. Follow him on Twitter at JR's Barbecue. We're going to do a quick break here. It's the top of the hour, and when we come back, we have a few more questions for good old JR, so stay close. It's the MMA Junkie Radio show on SiriusXM Rush 93.
It's me consider it more than a coincidence. Even though they mumble at me, suckers keep they businesses. 25, living like I was born yesterday. Loving right in the right, learning everything I take. Standing in the mud again, cause it's me to pay me well. Playing with my not so distant cousin from the ATL.
All right, here we go. It's the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. Let's get back to Jim Ross. We're talking a little bit of WWE. Covered Ronda Rousey and the Andre the Giant documentary that came out on HBO. Folks, you got to check that out. And so, JR, you're with us, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you again for joining us for some additional time here. How about another young lady that captured a title this past weekend, Shayna Baszler? You know, she was a pioneer of women's MMA, but she had a rough go of it because the one time she had an opportunity to really be under the spotlight and shine, it didn't go well for her. She went on the reality show and got eliminated early by a young lady who actually went on to be one of the big stars. And right now, she's her name's Juliana Pena. Right now, she just had the birth of her first child, so she's even off the shelves a little bit. But Shayna dusted herself off and used that catch wrestling background that she has. And I read that she captured a world title this past weekend at NXT. Tell me a little bit about NXT, which is something I don't know as much about, and how much capturing that title means to a young lady like that.
Well, NXT is the newest brand that WWE has developed under Paul Levesque, a.k.a. Triple H.
Okay.
It's a phenomenal brand. You know, our Mauro Ranallo, no stranger to anybody that's an MMA fan, is the play-by-play voice of NXT. Shayna becoming the champion, to me, equals several things. Number one, her skill set has advanced to where the powers that be are comfortable with her evolution. And I think that's probably the biggest thing out of the whole deal is that the company has confidence that Shayna is going to be a big-time player. If you look at the potential down the road of the Shayna is a natural villain. She carries herself like a villain. I think the world of her. I had a long talk with her at WrestleMania, and she's doing great. She looks wonderful. But I think that she's going to be a big-time star there, and because she's real. She's organic and natural. And you can only imagine somewhere down the road with the right storyline, the pissing contest that could occur between Shayna and Ronda.
Oof.
No buddies.
Ooh.
Jealousy rears its ugly head, the implosion occurs, and you got box office.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool deal. I'm happy for her.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh Barnett did a great job of coaching her up in catch wrestling, and she uses a hell of a lot of that in her pro wrestling presentation. So she's going to be really good, guys. She's, I know how some MMA guys, you guys are not those, don't like pro wrestling for whatever reason. That's cool. They're prerogative. But it's a great opportunity for these people to come to WWE after they have fulfilled their run, for lack of a better term, in MMA, to go keep making more money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're upset because somebody came to WWE to earn more money over a longer period of time, then I question your judgment.
Mm-hmm. Jim Ross here, our guest on MMA Junkie Radio. All right, let me turn it over to Dan Tom, our fight analyst. Dan, what do you have for JR?
Man, catch wrestling is a perfect segue, Jim. But before I get to that segue, I just got to say, first of all, this is the first time that I've been on the show while you've been on here. I know you've been on here many times before. I just got to say, as a pro wrestling fan of the 90s, and just as a kid who appreciated commentary teams from basketball, mixed martial arts, to pro wrestling, it is a great honor to talk to you. You are, not just because you're on here, amongst my all-time favorites, sir, so thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you, buddy.
No problem. But speaking on the catch wrestling now, I myself really interested in that because I train with a guy named Neil Melanson who actually comes from Hayastan and a Hayastan lineage similar to Ronda Rousey, and through him actually trained with a gentleman by the name of Brian Danielson, who at the time was just coming up from regional shows and trying to gain weight to make it to the big shows. Of course, people now know him, I believe the stage name Daniel Bryan, and I apologize, I don't follow pro wrestling currently, though, like I just mentioned, I followed it in the 90s. I guess what I'm trying to frame up here, Jim, you kind of mentioned it earlier, is that for mixed martial for a mixed martial arts audience listening, they might not realize from the catch wrestling or the history of MMA itself how it actually relates to pro wrestling, not just the big name superstars we're currently coming to see over here. So I guess my question for you, Jim, educating me and maybe the listeners on the pro wrestling scene currently, are we seeing more of a step up of the more strong style catch wrestling based arts in the, I guess, mainstream wrestling audience like the WWE? Are we seeing more of a step up in this in recent years, from the Shayna Baszlers to the NXT to the Daniel Bryan to the Ronda Rouseys? Is this a trend?
It might be. I think it probably is, because it's different, it's believable. I can buy into it. The style is transformable, transferable, better said, in a pro wrestling world than many other forms of MMA, martial arts, whatever. I'm a big, the pro wrestling started not unlike MMA is now. You had all these tough guys, some of them that would come over from Europe that were catch trained, and they would go take on all comers at an event, a circus, a carnival, whatever it may be. It was real. If you beat them, you got money, and they lost money. So it was very serious back in the day. So it all started with a lot of that catch wrestling stuff. Then you had guys like Carl Gotch and Billy Robinson, for God's sakes, who were just phenomenal. And of course, Josh, my partner on Access TV on Friday nights, was trained by some training by Gotch, and certainly had a long training career with Billy Robinson. So, and then now Josh has taken what he's learned from those two legends, he's passed it on to some of his buddies, including Shayna Baszler. So I think it adds a unique presentation element to pro wrestling that heretofore has not been that prominent. I believe we're on the cusp of seeing it become more prominent and pro wrestling become a little bit more reality-based overall, not exclusively, but overall.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Josh Barnett. Obviously, he's a great representative for catch wrestling, both in MMA and pro wrestling. And of course, yeah, Billy Robinson, big fan. Thankfully, my coach was able to educate me on guys like that. And it's interesting, like you said, because in those times, those guys didn't have the venues. The venues weren't around. Obviously, weren't as established like today, where we can see people like, as far as the Ronda Rouseys now thrive on this gigantic stage. Using lineage and martial arts. From days old, so that's awesome.
Ruth Ness is one of the most famous pro wrestlers of over many generations in the history of the business. And Lou's book, he talks about hooking. Some younger fans may think we're talking about the ladies of the night.
Yeah, you might want to clarify.
He's talking about punishing somebody. I use them in my commentary because I grew up around those guys. Danny Hodge, who was the baddest of the bad, in the story. And but hooking is painful joint manipulation. And again, kids, I'm not talking about rolling a doob here. I'm talking about taking somebody's elbow, their wrist, their knee, their ankle, their shoulder. You find the joint and you destroy it. And that's what hooking is a lot about. And you hope that before you tear something so severely a guy's out of work, that they have come along to your way of thinking. Because that's how it was sometimes. Everybody wanted to beat Pez and make themselves famous by upsetting the NWA champion. And he had to make sure that didn't happen. So if somebody got a little frisky, he'd double wrist lock their ass and put them in their place.
Wow.
That's Kimura for the MMA audience listening, by the way.
No hooking for this guy.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's awesome. I prefer double wrist lock. I prefer that term too, Jim. No need to apologize, please.
JR, one other question here. Speaking of Josh Barnett, I know he's wrestled in Japan. Could that guy make it in WWE? And have you ever felt like WWE has ever taken a look at him or would take a look at him? You guys ever have those convos over there when you guys are filming New Japan?
We never. Josh, at the time I was in charge of talent relations and hiring talent, Josh was really. I mean, we were friends. We knew each other. He was a friend of the Hart family, and God knows endless list of the Hart family, so you got to know him from various sources. Josh was always busy in MMA. He's still, UFC heavyweight champion, the youngest one ever, I think. I believe he was. So he was all immersed in that, and really he was a fan, but wasn't time. And now I just don't know. Could you get him over? Yeah, you could. Could he have a program or an interesting little dance with Lesnar? Probably so.
Yeah.
The same thing could be said in the UFC. Why couldn't Lesnar fight Josh Barnett in the UFC and both make a lot of money and beat the hell out of each other? Because they would.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Josh is a keeper. He's invaluable to me, guys, on the New Japan stuff that we air on Friday nights. And I love working with him. He's just very knowledgeable. He's serious. We try to add a little bit of comportment to pro wrestling commentary on Friday nights. So it's if that's possible, that's what we try to do.
2 more questions, quick ones. Ronda Rousey, do you think she would do? Okay, I mean, so far it looks like the hand that they've dealt is working out, and maybe that's really what she needed for her psyche. She looks as happy as ever, but eventually that heel turn will probably show up. Do you think she'll actually flourish more as a heel?
Well, being a great heel depends on how great you are as a babyface.
Mm-hmm.
So she's had one match, fellas. She seemed to be, the fans seemed to love her, and I would ride that horse until that son of a gun broke down before I saddled up the heel horse.
Oh.
So I don't know what the plan is for her, but as long as the fans are loving her and they're supporting her and they're buying her merchandise, it's all the measurables, then I wouldn't screw with anything on that deal. I'd leave her like she is and just let her keep getting better.
Who's the one that makes those types of decisions? Is it Triple H?
Vince McMahon.
Oh, Vince McMahon.
Will make the final decision on all major decisions in that company, and has since he created it. And but he will take input from a lot of people, including and specifically including Triple H. But it's just a feel thing, guys. It's a feel thing. It's not like, see, that's where we are in our. We all need the at once information, and we have very little patience. I'm probably at the head of the list on that deal, but I don't want to rush her into any character change until we have gotten everything out of this and that we can. And that would mean for me, her building up a major singles match against a hot female heel for next year's WrestleMania in New York City.
Gotcha. Okay, sir. The last thing, we'll close with this. Your Oklahoma Sooners, how are they looking for this year? I know you guys took a big hit with Baker Mayfield going to the NFL. He was an outstanding athlete and leader, but how have you guys reloaded for the 2018 campaign?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Thanks for asking. The key is the quarterback situation. But that goes for talking about anybody about their team. If there's a football team and you don't talk about the quarterback, you're not paying attention. So it's all a matter of how we can replace Baker and not drop off that much. So Kyler Murray was the number 1 quarterback in high school and went to Texas A&M, transferred to OU. He played a little bit last year. He's playing baseball, too, this spring, but he looks to be the front runner. But I think it's a very open competition. All the offensive lines that one guy's back. Receivers are back in good shape. Our best running back is back. Defense is manned up, got some new coaches, some new energy. So I think we'll be all right. And as a matter of fact, this is a big week for us here. I'm going to a function this week, Friday night, for Coach Stutes, honoring him and unveiling his new statue they're going to put by the stadium.
Oh, wow.
And then on Saturday, it's our red-white game. So it's being coached by Trent Williams on one team and Adrian Peterson on the other. So a lot of the old football alumni are coming back, and it should be a hell of a weekend for all of us. I'm going to try to limit myself to 3 or 4 Moscow mules at a setting just to make sure I don't get out of control.
Man.
But it's all good, guys. And look, thank you guys for mentioning my podcast. I've been on a sabbatical since January.
Right.
It's working on a new deal. So I love Westwood One. Good people. Cumulus is a great company. So it's live right now. Wherever you get your podcast, you can find it. Same place you find you guys, which I enjoy as well. So I thank you for letting people know this out there.
Yeah, thank you very much for doing the show. And, folks, it is available on iTunes just like ours. Check it out. Subscribe. Leave him a 5-star comment. It helps with the algorithm. It helps us all to grow. And at the same time, in no way would you be putting down anything that's untrue. It's a quality show, and there's some incredible guests that Jim lines up. And he is back now after 3 months. The first episode, his return, dropped this morning. So check it out. Thank you, JR, for the time. As always, we really appreciate it. And if you're ever in Vegas, let us know. We'd love to have you here in studio.
I'm going to be out there the first week in May for the Cauliflower Outlet Club convention, and I'll get a hold of you. Maybe I can drop by and say hi.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet, guys.
All right.
Have a great day. Thanks.
You too. Bye. I'm telling you, man.
It's as nice as they come, right?
Yeah, and so we were talking about, greatest moments, and having him in studio was up there for sure. He's really, really a special person.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So thanks to JR for his time. How about that? In 40 years plus of wrestling,
that's huge.
I've never seen a debut like that.
That's huge coming from him.
I'm sure the guys will capture that quote for exactly how he dropped it. But do
you remember pretty big debuts? Remember?
Well, like Mr. T. I mean,
the Shockmaster.
Did he specify debuting at WrestleMania or just a debut
just in general? Like I remember Jericho, right? They kind of
Y2J. Yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one.
He showed up. That was pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
Goldberg, remember he was undefeated?
Yeah.
He came over with a lot of hype.
Scott Hall's debut in WCW. He was already established, but he was drunk.
Alone, right?
Yeah, but he was drunk when he showed up to fight Goldberg because he was the guy. He was the ace up the sleeve to beat Goldberg before he got a shot at Hulk Hogan, and Hall just rolls out the window. Anyway, limo drunk. But
I just remember a few of them. That eventually made it over, like Ric Flair. That took so long to happen, but it did. Goldberg, I think, had reached 200 and he came over. But literally, what I got me into wrestling in the 80s was Cyndi Lauper and Mr. T coming over to fight Orndorff and Roddy Piper.
How did that?
It couldn't have been those two. Orndorff and Piper versus
Hulk
Hogan?
It was Hulk
Mr.
Hogan.
T and Cyndi Lauper was hanging around.
Yeah, and so
she had
I
the
think
Wendy Richter
Slicka
thing
was
going
kind
on,
of like
right?
in the corner too, and then they had Bob Orton.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. So I thought Mr. T came over and handled himself well, but I was a kid. So I didn't know what I was watching. Like, oh, he missed that bump. Oh, we could have done better. I wasn't seeing all that. All I was seeing was people cheering or booing, and if they were doing it, that means that there was a connection, and I think it's what's called a job well done.
Yeah.
So I watched Ronda on Raw, and I think she did well. But I haven't seen 40-plus years of wrestling, so I couldn't tell you, oh, my God, it was brilliant. I thought she did well. I think where she'll excel is in the heel role and when she gets to talking and comfortable, which you have to reach that stage.
Yeah.
I don't think you could just walk out there and start, monologuing and roasting and all that. It'll take some time, but I think when she gets there, she'll be one of the best heels of all time.
I disagree.
If she's interested in doing that. Because when she wants to get vicious, fuck, man, she's got the frown.
She should be, yeah.
She speaks very well, and she's got the backup from the fact that, hey, I'm not kidding. I will kick your ass. You know what I mean? Like, there's still that feeling like we all know that you can really do it. And what were we going to say?
I think she has the potential to do that, but there's something about the psychology behind her that she cannot take it when people do not like her and boo her, and I don't know that she can get past that.
We'll see. We'll see if she can – if she is able to compartmentalize and know, hey, I'm acting, this is a role. Maybe the louder they boo, the louder they're cheering in my mind. As long as I can give myself that, then man, it's like anything else. It's anytime you go to a new job, that's why people get sick the first week on the job. Is because there's that nerves. Am I going to fit in? Am I doing well? Do I suck? Did I make the right? All that comes. That's always happened to me. And I remember when Dan joined us.
Yep.
He was telling me, man, I never get sick. I'm sorry I'm sick. And the first thing I told him is, relax, bro, because it always happened to me. So I know exactly what you're going through. Luckily, I haven't had that in a long time. But I remember 2 big jobs I started, and I got sick, and I had to look at the boss and go, yeah, so I'm kind of sick, But in reality, I knew that I wasn't one of those that constantly did it. So I think that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. To be timely, we got to take a break in 5 minutes. So let's take this call from Showtime. Let's do that.
Hey.
Showtime from Tennessee. What's up, Showtime? It's yo time.
What's going on, fellas?
Not much. How about you?
Man, I think I'm gonna be a pro wrestler, man. College football player, turn drug dealer, turn good guy. I think that'd be a good storyline.
What would be? Would you be
like the
Showtime?
Godfather?
Now I'd be Cake Daddy.
Cake Daddy. Okay.
Don't want to
Yeah.
know that. Do we want to know
Yeah.
why?
Wait, Cake Daddy. What? Why are you Cake Daddy?
Because he laying
One of
down
my
all the
nicknames.
frosting on all the ladies.
No.
Ooh.
No?
What would be funny though is if it somehow you got a big cake in your face,
Yeah.
right? I like your Cake Daddy. All right.
Oh my God.
You know what's funny, man? I grew up, man. I'm a big Jim Ross fan, though. I was a big wrestling guy when I was a kid, man. As I became an adult, don't watch it as much. But I remember being a little boy. My grandmother liked it, man. That's what was so funny. We would sit there and watch wrestling, like, you know. I grew up in the day when you didn't have a whole lot of channels, so you had to kind of watch something. So we would sit there and watch wrestling and laugh.
Were you a JYD fan? He was from the South.
Yeah, Junkie or Dog. And I'm going to tell you who else I was a big fan of. I'm going to see if Dan Tom, you remember the great Kabuki?
Oh, that's racist. Yes, I remember the Great Kabuki. Of course, I remember the Great Kabuki.
Hey, Showtime.
You know what?
Showtime,
Huh?
don't lie. You had little tidy whities in on the back of them. You had your grandmother stitch in thump, right?
Yeah, probably a little tighter white with the little dude.
I wanted to know where I could get underwear where it said thump. Anyway.
That's good.
Yeah, crazy, man. But yeah, man, that's funny though. Just, I guess I was just going down memory lane as I was listening to Jim Ross. Kind of brought back the
It's cool.
memories.
Just what's cool about Jim Ross is just hearing his voice.
Oh yeah.
And you hear that voice and you're like, wow, he's talking to us. But yeah, proceed, Showtime.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Hey, is there is Canelo still gonna fight out there the first week of May, or
Nope.
that's all together?
That's off.
No, it's off. But I think the fight will still happen. The two big dates here in Las Vegas for Mexican-based fighters, or Floyd, which he really liked fighting either Mexicans or just fighting on those days, is somewhere around Cinco de Mayo and somewhere around September 16th. So for Canelo, who is Mexican, I could see either of those 2 days working. It's not going to be in time for May. I just think it's going to happen in September. But what's kind of silly is it's almost like the commission is saying, hey, man, you know how you guys were going to make a boatload of millions, you and that Triple G guy? Well, guess what? We're going to punish you. You got to wait till September, and then you get those big old checks.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like,
Clenbuterol de Mayo first.
I understand that he tested positive, but this is a big fight. It just seems like the big fight's going to happen, and it seemed like if they were really just going to do it for this day, somehow they could have made it happen, and you could still punish him, monetarily or whatever, but the fight's going to happen later on this year, and I don't know that any much of a lesson's going to be learned. Not to give the Mexican fighter a pass, but I think there's quite a few cases out there of the contaminated meat that really does have some legs. Canelo took it head on.
For a reason not to eat it.
Yeah, and already adjusted his camp. He moved it to San Diego, and that's why I feel like this is one of the more minor dust-ups that's going to get cleaned up, and at the end of the day, we're going to get the fight we want, just not on May 5th.
Yeah.
Yeah, my birthday is the first week of May, so I thought about coming out there. So that's what I was thinking about. I didn't know. I know initially they talked about giving them another opponent, but I may hold up and wait till the Terrence Crawford fight. I think when he fight out there sometime pretty soon.
All right, boss, we got to stay on schedule here. Thanks for the call. Great talking to you. Showtime from Tennessee. It was his time. On the way out, let me tell you about some odds that came through, courtesy of our good friend Joey Odessa. What's that?
I'm laughing at you asking if he like JYD, him asking if he likes the great Kabuki.
Oh, yeah.
I was waiting for him to ask me, hey, you know Tito Santana, right?
The Odessa line, Joey Odessa, his lines that are set out there, we call them the Odessa line. He's come through with a couple. Now, these fights have to happen in 2018, but if they do, the following are the odds that are in place. Khabib and Conor McGregor, if they fight, Khabib is minus 165, Conor McGregor's plus 135. At least that's what they opened at. if Habib were to fight Tony Ferguson, Habib would be minus 200. Tony Ferguson plus 165. So I know a lot of you love to talk some gambling. There's some odds for you. Again, these fights have to take place in 2018. All right, stay close. It's the MMA Junkie Radio Show on Sirius XM Rush 93. When we come back, we'll talk to UFC featherweight Cub Swanson, who has a fight coming up against Frankie Edgar at UFC Fight Night 128 on April 21st.
taught Andy Griffith how to whistle. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
The SEC now is a 24/7 home on SiriusXM. Hear from hosts like Peter Burns, Chris Childers, and more on SiriusXM SEC Radio, Channel 374, and the SiriusXM app. All right, so as we mentioned earlier, this is our 11-year anniversary, and Cub and I have been talking for a few weeks now, and we agreed on this date. And it just happens to land as a coincidence that Cub was actually one of our guests on week 1 about 11 years ago, and I posted a picture of us doing the show, and then him and Goes played some video games. What'd you guys play, football or fighting games?
Boxing.
Boxing?
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we all went and had a lunch at the Tustin Brewery, and it kind of reminds me of The Untouchables, that picture.
Yeah.
Remember The Untouchables, the movie with Robert De Niro and
Kevin Costner?
Kevin Costner. But remember those guys, when they first take down the bad guys, they just take that iconic picture that's part of the movie.
Yeah.
And for us, it was just 4 dudes that happened to, grab a meal later on. And Cub's obviously gone on to have a successful career. Frank Trigg did, so much in our sport as well. And luckily, Goes and I are still chugging along after 11 years. So that's a pretty special pick to me. But anyway, joining us now is Cub Swanson, UFC featherweight, who fights on April 21st at UFC Fight Night 128 versus Frankie Edgar. What's up, Cub? How you doing?
What's going on, guys?
Not much. How about you?
Just, training hard, living life,
And if I'm not mistaken, recently you announced you're expecting your second child.
Well, yeah, that's half of the story.
Uh-oh.
I'm having identical twin boys.
Whoa, cool, man. Happy, well, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, we were hit with the news. We were getting the ultrasound, and we were joking like, it's just one, right? Because we only wanted just to have 2 and then be done. And then she was like, yeah. And then she was like, wait a minute. We were like, no. And she told us, and immediately we were just like in shock. It was pretty funny.
Hey, in 2018, I've been asking ridiculous questions, and I know one of them's going to come through.
What, you want Cub to name one of his kids Goes?
No, George and Goes.
Oh,
on
George.
Our 11th
Yeah, how about that, Cub?
One of these is going to come through. I'm going to keep asking ridiculous
do
questions.
Do we stand a
one
chance?
will come through.
I mean, we don't know what to name the boys yet, because obviously our daughter's name's Royal, so it's got to be something a little epic. I think.
So Goes has a better chance than
George. And Goes is pretty epic.
You have a better chance.
George?
Yeah,
George
because
is like
Royal, and George is a royalty name, right? King George.
Oh, that's true. That's
so
true.
You go, here comes Royal, here comes King George,
All right.
there Goes.
All right. Well, Cub, again, congratulations. I'm sure that's going to be an amazing ride for you. We've known you for a long time. I don't want to say we met you as a boy, but we met you as a young man, and now 11 years later, you're a father, and congratulations, man, and one of the best in our business. So it's been a pleasure covering you for all these years and just seeing your growth, not only as a fighter but as a person.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Would you say that I've grown up a bit since you met me?
Well, you've never really been immature. I'll tell you that much. Actually, you were very mature early on. So it's not like I ever saw you acting a fool or throwing a dolly through a window or through a bus window. No, you've always actually been pretty chill. I think a few times you've shared with us on the show, hey, as a kid, got into some troubles here and there, but I didn't know you at that stage, so I kind of knew you as a guy that kind of maybe shook that off earlier than other men do, and you grew up kind of fast.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment.
Yeah. All right, brother. So you got this fight coming up. It's a rematch of a fight that took place a few years ago. And how much do you hold on to something like that? He got you that night, So is it one of those like payback's a bitch, or is it more like just competition against another great fighter that you look forward
to? Definitely payback. I felt like I was on such a roll then, and I was expecting to fight for a title, and then they wanted me to fight him, and man, it just didn't go my way. I thought I'd, he was great that night, and I felt like he was the better fighter that night by far. I learned a lot from that loss. And I feel like I've been working for years on how to get better on those things. And, you know, when he wasn't somebody really on my radar that I thought I would get a rematch, there's a lot of rematches I could get in the UFC, and that wasn't one that I thought was going to happen anytime soon. And then the UFC approached me with it, and I was like, hell yeah. You know, let's do this. I've been wanting this one for a while. I just didn't think it was close.
Cub, you were also in the midst of a free agency period. Because Frankie wanted to fight on this card to right the ship. You know, he lost to Ortega about 6 weeks ago. Before your fight happens, it'll have been 6 weeks. But because he wanted that, because they wanted that fight, did that help your leverage? And tell me about, you know, negotiating your new deal and how that factored in. Was it an enjoyable experience or not?
You know, you got to have tough skin when you're going around because you got to, you know, kind of figure out, you know, what you're worth at that time and depending on what organization. And it takes a lot of homework. And we talked to literally everybody, and everybody had interest in me. But I think a lot of guys are coming out of, you know, the UFC on losses, on multiple losses that, like, they got cut. And so, you know, they're not able to ask for as much money and things like that. So I think a lot of companies weren't really prepared to make me a big offer. But I was pretty close to signing with a company, and you know, I was really thinking hard about it, and me and my manager talked about it and said, man, I really would like to be with the UFC now that this has all been playing out. I was like, I just wish that they would hit me with, you know, a number that I would feel comfortable with and be happy to push forward, you know. And literally the next day, they called me and they said, hey, we want to offer you a better deal than we talked about originally, but we also want you to take this fight. I was like, cool, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. All right. That company, is it easy to just fill in the blanks and say Bellator, or was it anyone but Bellator, I guess?
It was not going to be Bellator.
Oh, wow. What the fuck?
Huh.
That throws me off.
Yeah, that throws me off too.
Holy shit. Can you tell us? Or I shouldn't have gone with the other. I should have just listed them and say
Yeah.
A, B, C, D, E. All right.
Yeah, that's all I'll say. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. I may hit free agency, you know, later in my career again, you know. So
I respect that,
you
bro.
never know, and I don't want to burn any bridges. And you know, it was everybody I talked to showed me a lot of respect, and I appreciated that. So, but, you know, being back here, I feel like I do have unfinished business. And, you know, Frankie Edgar is step one.
Well, you know, we'll just speculate on our end. I mean, the Russians come strong. Ryzen's paying. One championship. They got deep pockets. PFL wants to give away $1 million by the end of 2019. I got to imagine maybe somewhere in that ballpark. But we'll respectfully get away from that, and we'll continue with the interview. Cub Swanson, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He fights Frankie Edgar on April 21st at UFC Fight Night 128 in Edgar's home state of New Jersey. But to be more exact, the location is Atlantic City. Goes. What do you have for Cub?
Cub, after 2007, you haven't had the opportunity to avenge a loss. The Frankie Edgar fight, though, is that the one that you wanted the most out of all of them, if you did have a chance to avenge one? Like, where does it rank on there?
It's so funny because I've been so close to getting a lot of rematches. There's been talks so many times about me rematching Lamas or Aldo, Max, and Frankie just was never seemed close to being done, you know. So now that I have it, there's nothing I want more at this moment. But yeah, like I said, it just never really was on my mind until they offered it to me.
When that name was brought up to you, were you a little surprised? Because he did suffer, you know, a pretty bad loss. It seems like maybe some people are saying not enough time has gone by. They wanted him to heal up a little bit before he took another match. Did that surprise you a little bit that he was willing to get right back in there?
Oh, for sure. First of all, I was baffled that he lost to Ortega. And then, I guess it doesn't surprise me that much that he wanted to get right back in there. I don't really think it was, the smartest thing, but I know he's a fighter, and most fighters that have a tough loss that, they want to get right back in there and make it right. So, I mean, I can understand that. But that's on him.
The fight analyst, Dan Tom, has a couple for you. What do you have, Dan?
Cub, I know last time we had you on, I paid you the compliment of your analysis skills, just kind of hearing you break things down. And since then, I've heard you in subsequent interviews, and it almost seems like you've gotten better at that. And, I saw you on UFC Now, I believe, a little over a month ago. Tell me, Cub, in the negotiations, was there anything in the negotiations that had to do with maybe more FaceTime on the desk or any of these opportunities?
Good question, man.
That was like one of our main things, going outside of the UFC with our negotiations was, doing commentating, building my brand. There was tons of things we were asking for. But then when we ended up signing back with the UFC, it happened so fast. And I was already getting smaller gigs with them. I've been doing a lot of the stuff for their UFC Fight Pass. We didn't really put that we didn't ask for any of that in the contract. But I just moved back to Orange County, so I'm a lot closer to LA. And so I plan on reaching out to them and just, asking them for more gigs because I think that I have the knowledge to do it. It's just about repetition and getting better, just like fighting. So I definitely want to do it more.
Awesome. And like you said, you're not disqualifying any bridges in the future. Your head is clearly focused on your next opponent. Your head is clearly focused on fighting. But, becoming a father of twins even is no easy task. Is this something you really want to try to juggle, in other words, going forward as far as making this part of the Cub Swanson brand, as far as what you offer and bring to the table?
Well, yeah, I mean, what I keep telling these younger guys that I kind of keep around me, that's why I've stayed, big in this sport for so long, is just I keep these young, hungry guys around me, and I mentor them. And one of the things I tell them is, look, your fighting ability, gets better through time, but one of the biggest things is what you're able to take on, and you see these champions, what their media schedule is like, what they have to do to their schedule and being able to get all those trainings in and what they can do on their plate. I just keep improving and improving. So being a father, running a few businesses, running a few schools, training harder than I've ever trained, it's crazy what I've been able to adapt to and push for. And I just feel like all that stuff on my plate is just making me stronger and better.
Where in the OC did you move back to?
I'm in Yorba Linda.
Oh, okay. Well, you got the gym.
So I'm here at the training lab. Yeah, I'm here at the training lab full time now. I literally moved out here 2 weeks ago.
Is that Dillashaw, Soto, Munoz, that group that's getting together and training?
Yeah. It's Juan Archuleta, TJ Dillashaw, myself, Georgie Conakarian's been here with his whole crew. I bring out a crew. Literally, just people have been calling us and asking us to come, and we have a pretty solid group.
Yeah, man. Yorba Linda is expensive, so Cub's doing well. That new contract must be fat. Congrats on all that. Also, in the negotiations, when Dana White was asked about it, and I don't know if it was after the card in Fresno or maybe the one in Vegas, but that was asked to him, and he said, we want to keep Cub, and we're gonna make him happy. Did you feel during the negotiations, were you able to get any one-on-one time with Dana, and in the end, did you feel like Dana held his word?
Yeah, that's what I was probably most happy about. Sorry, someone's trying to call me if I'm going mute for a second. Right after my fight, within a week, I was in Vegas when my manager had to sit down and with Sean Shelby, and we were trying to hash out the details of re-signing. And, they made me an offer. They gave me a small raise, and, coming off a loss, I was appreciative of it. But I told them what my plans were. my plan for fighting, after fighting and setting myself up now and trying to be smart. And they gave me a deal that, they felt was fair, and I thought I could go elsewhere and get more. And they told me, go ahead, see what you can get. And so I was spending all that time talking to all these companies, and Dana would call me and say, hey, have you thought about it? I said, hey, we're still working on it. And then literally, I felt like we had talked to everybody we could have, and we were going to talk to them again. And that was when they made me another offer, and that's the one I took.
Man, that's awesome. I'm glad it worked out for you. The last thing is your time. I mean, now that you're a father of a baby girl, and you're also expecting twins, and the fact that that new team is out there flourishing, is your time at Jackson's done, or do you still feel like from time to time you'll migrate over to Albuquerque and continue to get work in, at this gym that you've been with for a long time?
I definitely would like to get out there. I'm still, good friends with everybody out there. They've done so much for me over, I think I was out there for like 8 years, 9 years, something crazy. And, I just, I didn't burn any bridges. My picture's still hanging on the walls. And, I just at this point, with a family now, I don't see myself traveling 2 states away and being gone. And, at the same time, sometimes change is good. And I feel like with what I've been able to create here with TJ and a bunch of these guys, and, it's just a bunch of young, hungry guys and some hungry veterans. It's kind of making it fun, and I'm excited. I literally see the future of me being here. So, like I said, no bridges have been burned, but I see myself being here in California.
Yeah, no doubt. Plus, you got the gym in Costa Mesa, so and if you ever make it over to the Fox desk, you got to be within an hour's drive, right? Not a 2-hour flight.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier for them. So, yeah, I got a lot of business here in California. So,
right on, my man. All right, well, listen, whatever's left of camp, I hope you have a safe camp and some easy and safe travels back to the East Coast. We look forward to your fight versus Frankie Edgar. Should be a great one. Your fights always deliver. So thanks for the time here on MMA Junkie Radio, and hope you have a nice day, bud.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the 11 years of friendship as well.
As do we, my man. Keep in touch, all right? And let us know if you're in Vegas after the fight sometime. I need to have you and Go's rematch that boxing game. He's been holding on to that for a while.
All right. That's no problem. We'll get it done.
All right, take care.
All right.
See ya. There you have it, folks. Cub Swanson, one of the best in the business. Follow him on Twitter, @Cub Swanson. We'll take this break. We'll come back. Hal from Chicago's barking at us, and then we'll cover the latest news and get on out of here. It's MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM, Rush 93.
Tell your boss to reschedule that meeting. Call your wife and tell her lunch is off. It's time for more MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes.
The SEC now has a 24/7 home on SiriusXM. Here are the hosts like Peter Burns, Chris Childers, and more on SiriusXM, SEC Radio, Channel 374, and on the SiriusXM app. All right, guys, it is now time for the Daily Debate. Here is the poll question we offered to our readers on the MMAJunkie.com website. After Khabib Nurmagomedov's title win at UFC 223, who should be his next opponent? You have 4 choices. Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor, George St. Pierre, or other. Goes.
Wipe GSP off of that. I have no interest in seeing that. What makes the most sense would be Conor McGregor. But that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. I don't think Conor wants a piece of him, to be honest. We don't know what the legal ramifications are. It just doesn't make sense. I know a lot of people aren't going to like Tony Ferguson getting booked again, but come on, man. I mean, it's unavoidable. They're going to have to fight eventually. I would say you got to go Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, I'll say this. I go for other because I got my sights on Poirier. If he gets past Justin Gaethje, I think he deserves it, and I think that's a realistic answer that I'm giving you guys. He's on a win streak. Defeating Gaethje would just add and pad that resume. So I just think that's what makes the most sense. If other wasn't there, believe it or not, with Conor McGregor's problems, I would say more than likely it would be him. It's not for me, it's not a popularity contest. The results, which I'll give in just a sec, it does sound that way. But GSP, man, just fought at middleweight, has stomach issues, and has never made lightweight. Tony Ferguson just got cut. You know, he got cut. He got surgery yesterday or the day before, and I see that as like a 9-month recovery. So I think Conor could get out of any problems he has, pay a fine, write a check, and be the next guy. But other's the key, and I think it's Poirier. Dan?
I can't believe I'm going against you guys because I'm with the other option. And, of course, everybody knows I've been in love with this Tony Ferguson-Khabib matchup for the 4 times now they've tried to do it. And even though I'm just now beginning to muster those names together and want to say Tony Ferguson, I will say Conor McGregor because I believe that not only does it answer this question, maybe even answers the proverbial rankings, but it even ties in the punishment question of Conor McGregor because, let's face it, guys, financial punishment when you're making a certain amount of money to the punishment that people at a high status receive, which is kind of a slap on the wrist, it's probably not going to satisfy the masses. What is a real punishment, though, in many people's eyes, is having to go fight Khabib Nurmagomedov, especially in a place like Russia. I feel like it provides clarity there, and it's going to give, it'll have to make Conor answer for his actions more than any kind of court dealing, having to face Khabib and actually settle it inside the cage. So I'll vote Conor.
And I'll say this, if it winds up being Conor, he will have misplayed his hand, and so that's something Conor McGregor rarely does. All he had to do is just get this love for fighting, and he could have been dictating the terms. He could have been the star at Brooklyn, and Khabib or Tony could have been fighting him, but he sat on those millions, and now he might be in this pickle. All right, that's today's Daily Debate, brought to you by the MMA Junkie Radio team. Now, let's wind up with the call, one of my favorites. It's Hal in Chicago. What's up, Hal? How you doing?
Hey. As I was watching Khabib take that belt, the MMA fan said, man, he's the best. But then there was that part of me that's saying, like, wow, this is the first very Muslim, not only is he Muslim, he's a Russian champion. You know what I mean? And that's very interesting given today's culture and politics. And I was thinking about you guys over at JBLE, if you care to comment at all on it, was what the eyes from those guys must be very different than the average idiot like me just sitting at home drinking beer, watching MMA, saying like, yeah, it's an awesome fighter. But it's like, as he's praising Allah, he's Russian, Muslim. I mean, was there at all did you sense any like, kind of scattered applause, a slow clap, like, yeah, okay, what, anything like that?
They definitely got behind the American fighters, but I think in this particular incident, they just wanted the underdog, right? I think they just wanted to see that come through.
Yeah, and the East Coast, Hal, as you know, we're talking 1 a.m., man, or whatever, when these guys fought. And these guys were so charged up that by the time we got to it, I think it was like, hey, let's just get through this fight. There wasn't an American versus a Russian, but we didn't get that much of a feel on that one. So, great question, though. And sorry we have to rush you off. You know you're one of my guys. But the show is ending. But thanks for calling in. It was great to hear your voice. Anyway, folks, again, thanks for all the support over the years. It's been a fun show. Thanks to JR and Cub Swanson, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of MMA Junkie Radio. Until then, go out there and be a champion.
Viva Las Vegas with your neon flag.